All right, students, we're going to start talking about the nervous system for our last set of notes. Please make sure that you guys have this note sheet, which should be on the front of your packet, ready to go. You're going to need this to wrap up your lab at the end of the week, so make sure you take good notes. And let's get started on the nervous system. So, the nervous system um, is one of your organ systems, so it's made up of organs, tissue, and cells. And we mostly find this in animals, and these control movements and processing information. Basically, this system does the same thing that your brain does. It is responsible for controlling everything that happens, from regulating hunger, body temperature, movement. This is the system that controls and tells every other system what to do. Now, what it's made of, as we talked about, it is made up of organs, tissues, and cells. The main cells that it's made up are called motor and sensory neurons. So, a specific cell of the nervous system is a neuron. The first type is called a motor neuron, and this word motor means to move. That's why a motor in a car needs to be on in order for the car to move. So, as it says here, these neurons are responsible for carrying out the instructions from the brain. So, if my brain tells my arm to move, these neurons are going to make it move. It'll tell the muscles to contract and then actually move part of my body. It might also be something like, oh, hey, we're running low on energy, stomach, feel hungry. Or um, maybe you're out of breath from running, your brain might be telling your lungs, breathe more, take in more oxygen. These neurons would actually be controlling that part of your body that's making that part happen. The second main type is called a sensory neuron, and you guys have seen sense before, like our five senses. These neurons are responsible for giving your brain information from the senses. So your nose has sensory neurons for smell, your hands have sensory neurons for touch, your ears have sensory neurons for hearing, and your eyes have sensory neurons for sight. All of these things work together so that your brain can process information in the real world so that it can then make a decision, like use the motor neurons. So make sure you get those written down for those two main types. Now, how it works is it starts with your sensory neurons. So, number one, your sensory nerves take in information. Um, sorry for the typo, but it should say um, lets you see, hear, feel, taste, or smell something. Again, I apologize. I said that in the wrong order. But basically, your senses take in something. Something's hot, something's cold, something tastes good or bad. That information, then, just like here on the picture, gets sent to your brain where it's processed, just like a computer to think about something. Then your brain makes a decision and it sends a message out to your motor neurons. And your motor neurons will then carry out a task. So, starting from up here, let's say you see a ball thrown at you. This nerve send that information to your brain. Your brain processes it that there's a ball and doesn't like that. So then it sends a message to your arm to throw up your hand to then catch the ball or block the ball or flinch or whatever it is. So this is going to be a very important thing. Sorry. So make sure that this gets recorded in your notes for how your nerves work together. And there's a more official term for how this is called, and that's going to be up next. So when you're ready, make sure you continue to play through the video. So, how we actually call this in science is that first two parts, we call it a stimulus. And a stimulus is a thing that causes the body to react in a certain way. Um, so, it, an example of a stimulus would be you getting poked by a younger sibling or a younger kid or your best friend. Another example might be you walk into a room or walk past a garbage can and you notice there's a bad smell. Um, these are all things that your senses are reacting to pick up on information. So you feel someone touching you, you smell the bad smell, you walk outside and it's cold. Those are all stimulus. It's something that's going to cause your body to react in a certain way. Some more examples for you to write down. Um, an example would be like touching something hot, your nerves will pick up on that information. Getting poked, that sends information to your brain. Seeing something thrown at you, your then have to process that in your brain. Hearing a loud noise or smelling something, these are all things where your senses are bringing in information so your brain can think about what's going on around you. So make sure you get a couple of those written down. Now, once your brain has processed all of this, the stimulus has gone to your head. Now your brain needs to do something else. It needs to respond or go through response. And this is pretty simple. This is just how your body reacts to the stimulus. For example, let's say you're thirsty and you see a glass of water. Well, seeing the stimulus would be the glass of water. Your brain thinks about it and then tells your arm to pick it up and you drink it. Um, Same thing like if you touch something hot on the stove, your body instinctively goes, ah, as you pull your hand away to avoid causing further damage to your body. Um, some examples of this is anytime that you've ever flinched, that's a type of response. Your body picked up on the information, your brain processed it, and said, yep, back away. Um, Feeling sick, like if you smell something really gross and you start feeling sick, that is another response that your brain has to say, stay away from it. Whenever you walk into a cold room, you will instinctively start to shiver in response to warm your body up. Same thing like if you're walking outside on a hot day, you may start sweating because the stimulus is that it's too warm. You need to sweat to cool down. And then opposite of flinching would be like catching something, you're voluntarily responding to it. So whenever you're ready, head on to the next one, and we're going to talk about a couple more of these responses. Just a couple more, like again, I see a ball thrown at me, that would be the stimulus, so I put my hand up to catch it. That's the response. I smelled something bad and I started feeling sick. Smelling something bad would be the stimulus, feeling sick is the response. I walked out in the cold is the stimulus. I started shivering, that is the response. Now, some of your responses can be broken down into voluntary and involuntary. Voluntary are the things you can control consciously. These are the things you choose to respond to. For example, catching something. If you are an athlete, you get trained so that this is a voluntary response, so that when someone passes to you, you know to make the choice to go for it. Raising your hand when you hear something that you're confused about, that's a voluntary response. You are choosing to raise your hand. Choosing a snack. Again, getting hungry is an involuntary thing, but choosing what you eat can be more of a voluntary choice out of what's given to you. And then choosing to run at a track meet. Um, your effort is your choice whenever you're an athlete. So, um, if you're choosing to run faster or slower based on how competitive you are, that's a voluntary response. Um, so, these are the things you can control. And there's a whole list of other things that go into this. And these are going to be most of the things you choose to do in your daily lives, what you talk about, what you say it, what you eat, how you eat it. Basically, anything that involves choice is going to be a voluntary response. That leads to the other one, which is the involuntary response. This is what I like to think of as reflexes or instinct. This is something where your body just reacts to it. Your brain doesn't consciously think about it to keep you alive and well. So these are the responses your body slash brain will automatically control. You don't think about these, it just happens to keep you functioning. For example, um, when you walk outside, you might start shivering in order to warm up. You don't necessarily tell your body to shiver, it's just something that your body does to stay alive. Same thing with sweating. When it gets too hot, your body starts to sweat in response to keep it alive or keep it bouncing. Flinching and dodging, just like as you can see here, when it happens super quick, your body just goes into panic mode and just backs up for a second. And then again, feeling hungry or thirsty. Your body, your brain knows when you don't have enough water or food in you. It'll send signals saying, hey, sometime in the next little bit, you need to choose a voluntary snack, but know that you are feeling hungry and that's not a choice. Um, Please be careful with the hungry and thirsty one. Some of those things, true hunger is an involuntary response. Hunger from things like boredom or um, basically anything that's not a life or death situation. is a little bit of an involuntary response, but humans are also adapted to deal with those involuntary responses over long periods of time. So just be careful when identifying things like that. But that is basically the nervous system in a nutshell for what you need to know for this week's experiment. Remember, if you missed something, make sure you go back. I did go kind of quickly through this video. When you're finished, raise your hand so that your teacher knows you are finished. All right, nice job, guys. This was your last set of notes. So, woohoo!